Welcome to Community Express. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. Today we'll talk with incoming Santa Cruz Mayor Don Lane about the state of the city. Daniel James Howell explores how people move their money on Bank Transfer Day. And Brad Kava, editor of Santa Cruz Patch and journalism chair at Cabrillo College, is here to discuss trends in citizen journalism. All this, plus Jessica Vo has your video community calendar coming up on Community Express. Don Lane was first elected to Santa Cruz City Council in 1988 and was mayor in 1991. He was one of the founders of the Saturn Cafe and has been a leading community organizer in Santa Cruz for almost 2 decades. Welcome, Don. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
There's never a dull moment in Santa Cruz, and you're about to take the reins again as mayor. As you're coming in, do you have any particular goals that you want to get accomplished as mayor?
I do have some goals, but I'm also trying not to set my sights too high because I think no matter what I plan for, it will go differently. But a couple of things that I'm thinking a lot about. One, just continuing to work on improving the local economy. I think there's just a lot of work there, and that benefits the private sector and the local government if we are successful there. Another area that I've done a lot of work in is around homelessness. And I don't see myself doing a tremendous amount more, but I want to try and elevate the profile of the issue a little more and see if we can engage the community a little more constructively in dealing with it.
Well, some of the things we're going to talk about today do circle around that issue somewhat. So I'll just dive right in to one of them, and that is Occupy Santa Cruz has kind of crossed into a little bit about homelessness as well as about the economic issues that the bigger Occupy Wall Street movement has been advancing. And you were just down there trying to do something, make peace before they get cleared out. There's some issues about an encampment that is more specific than the overall goals of the movement. So can you talk about what just happened and what you hope to do as a city about that?
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line for me is that we want people to be able to demonstrate, and I think the Occupy movement is raising some really important issues in the community and in the country, so we want to be supportive of that opportunity. At the same time, they are occupying a big chunk of a city park, and there have been some physical problems there, just some management problems, sanitation problems. And so the city's really trying to say, if you're going to be here, you've got to run this really well, or we can't let you continue to do damage to the park. So the discussions have been really around that. And it has been challenging because some of the folks who are camping in the park really aren't particularly associated with the political movement, and they're just taking advantage of the opportunity to set up their tent in the park. So that's one of the things we're trying to navigate around.
Complicated stuff. And because you are so associated and care so much about homeless issues, it must be a complicated one to try to pick apart and deal with. San Lorenzo Park is a city park. It has been a camp out, really, although people don't have tents. They're sleeping in the open in San Lorenzo Park. What's the long-term plan for that situation? Just putting Occupy Santa Cruz aside for a moment, it becomes a place, on one end there's families playing in the daytime, and in the morning there's just people sleeping everywhere.
Yeah.
What do we do about that as a community?
I wish I had a short answer to that, or even a long answer, but I think, my starting point is something I mentioned before. I think it really requires the community, not just local government, but everyone in the community to say, what are we prepared to do about it? I think there's mostly what we've been prepared to do is kind of argue about it and kind of complain about it, and I think we have to move past that and talk about, well, what would change the circumstances there? I certainly have my own ideas about that in terms of shelter and additional programs that would be helpful. But I think that before we get to that, we have to have a sense in the community that, okay, let's really think about this together and decide what are the right approaches, and then put our energy into that. Because right now the energy is kind of scattered.
Something to work on over the next couple of years. And how is the city doing budget-wise? I know cities all over the country have been hammered by the 2008 banking collapse and everything that took it down with it. Are we rebounding in some sectors and not others? How are we doing with our tax base? Just a quick snapshot would be great.
Yeah, we're doing pretty well considering the environment we're operating in. I'm pretty happy with the progress we're making. It doesn't mean we have solved all our problems by any means, but it's good to be moving in the right direction. And a couple of things that I think we've made some budget reductions that have been painful, but have also made it possible for us to operate on a little more secure, stable basis. City employees have made real sacrifices to keep us on track, and so we really appreciate that. And then the other piece is gradually the local economy is improving. One of the things we've seen, just as an example, is our sales tax revenue compared to a year ago has really improved significantly. So we're seeing just modest increases in revenue, enough so that we hopefully won't have to do any significant cutting in the near future. I think that still looms as a prospect, but we're sort of out of a crisis mode, and I think that's always good.
That is great to know. There's a couple big buildings empty downtown. Any rumors and prospects for those two giant buildings? We have the Rittenhouse and the former Borders building.
The rumors abound, especially around the Borders building. I hope by the time this is broadcast, there'll be news, more concrete news, but there's definitely some serious prospects for that one that could materialize very, very quickly. The Rittenhouse building, the city and the Rittenhouse properties, I think, are both working hard to try and find tenants for that space. I know there's a lot of interest in it, but it seems to have been more about striking the right business deal that has caused that to take a long time, rather than a lack of interest.
This is sort of a more politics question. People are always fascinated by the machinations of the Santa Cruz City Council. Some of the public comments have ended up on YouTube as sort of aren't we funny? But, and it is. I mean, the public comment section is a place where people come in and say their piece. Do you see restructuring the meeting schedule in a way that there is enough public comment and that it works in a way for the public to come in? I know that's been somewhat of a discussion amongst you all.
Yeah, I think we've been it's been a work in progress over the last couple of years, and I think I'm going to make some small adjustments to try and improve it a little more. One thing I'm hoping we'll do is we have the public comments happen now at a set time. And that means that we might be right in the middle of another agenda item and then just stop in the middle of it and then go to public comments, and then we're feeling kind of rushed, so then we just end that after half an hour and then go back to the item on the agenda we were on. And I'm going to try and figure out a way that we would do that more smoothly, where before we start oral communications, as we call it, that we'd finish whatever item we were on, so that's a little smoother that way. I'm probably going to be a little more flexible about the amount of time people have to speak at oral communications, but I still think we're not going to have an unlimited amount of time. I think it will still be constrained. Usually the council has a lot of other items on the agenda, and we have to get to those too.
I always think one of the challenges of being a city council person is just keeping a straight face during some of the presentations, because they can be pretty far out and repetitive. We only have another couple minutes, and I know there's a lot of issues, but I did want to quickly bring up the water issue and the UCSC conversations. Is the conflict between the city and UCSC pretty much over? I know there's some lawsuits trying to bring back into focus whether the deal that was cut about how much the city's going to give the university was fair to the city. Where does that stand? And I know desal is a whole other thing. We'll have you back to talk on another time.
I think there'll always be some wrestling around the university growth issues, but I think we've made tremendous progress, and I think we're wrestling over smaller pieces of it now. And the next piece is around this LAFCO, this Local Agency Formation Commission decision about extending some additional water service to the university. And I think, I'm from the city's perspective, I think we're kind of working on a mechanism so that the university will be paying to make sure that any new demand they create is offset. And so if we can get that lined up, I think that will make a real difference, and that means that then the university's growth will not actually have any impact on our local water system.
Well, that's a great short answer to a really long question, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come down here today and talk to us about all of this, and we'll catch up with you again maybe a year into your term, see how it's going. Thank you, Don Lane.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Up next, November 5th was Bank Transfer Day. An estimated 650,000 people moved their money to small banks and credit unions. Bank of America has refused to say how many of its customers closed accounts that day. Daniel James Howell talks to folks at the Community Credit Union of Santa Cruz County to see what happened locally.
Daniel James Howell, producer of Community Express. We're here at Santa Cruz Community Credit Union on Bank Transfer Day. I personally closed my Bank of America account this morning. They politely declined an interview and referred me to their media representative who was not local and was only available by phone. So we came down to the Community Credit Union here to find out why people are moving their money and what effect it's having locally. Why is it that local credit unions like yourself invest more locally and are better and lend more locally?
I think part of it goes just back to the whole credit union environment. I mean, credit unions are kind of people helping people environments. They've always, types of financial institutions, they've always been that way from the beginning of time when they were first created. So a credit union gets into a community and serves that community, serves local businesses and local membership, and you get this giving back into the community thing. So when money comes into the credit union, it stays in that local community. So our money coming into the credit union goes to our members. It goes like in better services and usually better rates and lower fees. In addition, we reach out and do small business loans. Our loans going into small businesses then turn into job creation. We're really focused on that right now because, as you know, the local economy and everything that's been going on, we want to be really supportive of that. So I think a lot of it has to do with kind of that local community give back that I think all credit unions do, and we certainly are right on board with that. It's important to also be available and willing to be volunteers, and we're all about that as well.
With us now is Sean Badia, Chief Operating Officer of Santa Cruz Community Credit Union. So tell us a little bit about the origins of Santa Cruz Community Credit Union.
The history of the credit union is a really interesting one. We started in 1977 with a group of about 10 people looking to provide a local alternative for financial institutions. And so 10 people and literally a box of cash was the foundation of this organization. And it's now come full circle. It's really fantastic. Really, the reason this institution was started was to provide a local alternative, and now people are coming back realizing that this is really an important community feature.
So Tracy, you've had an account here at Santa Cruz Community Credit Union a long time. Tell us why.
I was told I should stay local, and I had friends when I moved here. I was like, do the Santa Cruz Credit Union. You don't want to do Bank of America. So I kind of knew to be smart a long time ago. So, and that's what I did. I opened an account over 10 years ago. So, and I've been here ever since. No issues, no problems, I've never had a problem with Santa Cruz.
Any thoughts about Bank Transfer Day? Everybody trying to move their money into local accounts?
Loving it. I love the fact that it took what's going on in this country right now for them to really realize how important it is to stay local and be local. And now people are getting a clue of what to do and how to make things right for themselves and for the community. And it's so important for that, and I totally believe in that.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
We're here with Carlos Rodriguez, Marketing Manager, Santa Cruz Community Credit Union. So we have local credit unions, local banks, obviously the big banks too. Carlos, tell us the difference between a credit union and a bank.
Well, the difference between a credit union and a bank could probably be best explained by explaining some of the similarities. We're similar in that we have checking accounts, we have savings accounts, we have ATM machines, online banking, just like the banks do. But we're different in that we're locally owned, and we're locally owned by our members. So when you go to a credit union, you actually join a credit union, you become a member, and you get a share of that credit union. You become part owner of that credit union. You could vote for the board of directors. You could even sit on the board of directors. Right. It seems that a lot of people are frustrated because they don't have control of how the big banks use their money. You read in the paper all the time where a big bank is maybe financing an operation overseas that you may not agree with politically. They may be financing something that's harmful to the environment and so forth, and you have really very little say in that. With a local institution, and especially with a local credit union, if your credit union is not doing what you'd like it to do, you could always run for office. You could always run and become a member of the board of directors and make that very change that you believe in.
I think what's really interesting is that this seems to it's a grassroots movement that has grown exponentially because of Facebook, and I think it's here to stay.
With us now is Brad Kava. He's the editor of Santa Cruz Patch, a web-based news outlet that uses local sources to report local news. He's also the chair of the journalism program at Cabrillo College. Welcome, Brad.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here. I first became aware of you by reading your column in the San Jose Mercury News. You wrote about my favorite topic, radio. A lot has changed since then, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So you're writing for an online publication, you're teaching journalism. I am doing neither, but I was teaching journalism with you at Cabrillo. I want to start out just by talking about, a snapshot of the landscape right now. When students come to you and say, I want to be a journalist, what do they think that means, and do you have to sort of revise it for them when they come in?
Well, yeah, for a while it was desperate and dire, right? 30,000 or something journalists had been laid off. And I would tell them, I can teach you writing skills. You can use them for PR at some point, or maybe to get a journalism job, but they're few and far between. But in the last few years, there really has been a rebirth, partly because of the company I'm working for, which is called Patch. And we've hired a few thousand journalists now, linked up with the Huffington Post and America Online. And I think it may be the future, the thing we were looking for, the iTunes of media.
And what makes it so compelling and different than, say, a website that's updated every couple of weeks?
Well, one, we're hyper-local. There's about 1,000 patches now across the country. So I cover only Santa Cruz, everything about Santa Cruz. You're not going to read anything but Santa Cruz on my patch. And in part, I'm like a wire service because I update constantly throughout the day. So you're going to get news, at least 7 to 10 stories a day that's happening right here in Santa Cruz, when they happen. We also, because it's on the web, we have use of video, audio, photographs. So we can tell a story in so many different ways. It's not restricted like it was at a newspaper or any of the other media. We can use all the electronic media into one form.
And yet, on the other side of it, it must be rather hard to figure out on a daily basis, what the top story is and to cover it without, the kind of legs on the ground covering city council meetings that say, the Sentinel had when it was in Santa Cruz, because they had people, with their ears into all kinds of business. So how do you keep that kind of
the same way.
antenna out?
Yeah, I'm an old school reporter, so I'm at the city council meeting or watching it on TV here. So we cover all of that. And on top of that, I have about 20 freelancers working for me. So I've got people who can get out into the community as well. I have about 20 bloggers at the site. So we're covered. We have a vast amount of resources in the area, just like a traditional newsroom.
And how does Patch pay people? I mean, what is their income revenue source? It's obviously got a big granddaddy, AOL, backing it, but what is the ad revenue funding this, or what is?
At this point, it's ad revenue, but the history of Patch is kind of amazing. It was started by one of the guys who was first at Google, one of the top, the first marketing guy at Google. He retired at the age of 40, went to Connecticut, and wanted to do volunteer work. And he looked around and he couldn't find anything that aggregated volunteer jobs. So he started something called Polar.com, which was a local and a nationwide collection of volunteer stuff. He turned Polar into Patch. So, because he thought, if there's no volunteer things, I'm not even finding the local news I want. So specifically, we're looking at patches in smaller communities more than Santa Cruz, ones that aren't already covered the way Santa Cruz is. But we have a hyper-literate community here, and we have a lot of different news. But it's working at Santa Cruz. The response has been phenomenal.
And how do you track it? Number of hits to the website?
Well, that's it, number of unique visitors. So that tells me what people care about. I see all day long, I'm a numbers junkie. So I see what they care about. And sadly, it's just like you thought. If I write about American Idol, it goes crazy. If I write about the city council, maybe a little less so. And yet, some things really work, like desalination. Get huge response on desalination and local issues. The making of Pacific into two-way, one-way, all of the local issues. In Santa Cruz, we get a lot of response to things like that.
And I imagine the Occupy Santa Cruz thing has been big. Anything that's changing on a daily basis, right? So.
Right, yeah, because you don't have to wait the next day to get it. And we're online and we send news. Something breaks immediately, we have a service where we get it right to your phone and give you alerts that something's happening right away.
What kind of vetting do you do that might be the same or different than a regular newspaper? There's always the criticism of online sources that you have to know that it's verifiable and factual, and the speed at which you're turning it around. Do you ever worry that some of your rookie journalists are just not going to get it right?
I always worry about that.
As an editor?
Yeah, as an editor. But it's just like a wire service. You do the best you can do. You teach people the skills, and you follow the basic rules of journalism: fairness, objectivity, covering all sides of the issue. We try to keep those old world skills and move them into the new media.
Let's go back to Cabrillo for a minute, because I know, we started this conversation. What do you tell people in terms of careers? Sounds like you're telling them online. Do they still get to practice other media as far as newspaper writing and seeing their name in paper print or radio or other kinds of media?
Well, that's the funny thing at Cabrillo, where you are plugged into all of those things. I want to do more with CCTV. We're talking about that. But we have them on the radio, and we have the newspaper. And the funny thing is the students, they absolutely love the paper, the old tactile, the old school thing, more than the web. I've been amazed, because they're young and they're supposed to be the hip, digital generation, but they're like people who like vinyl albums. They really like to see their name in the paper and to have their hands on it and pass it around to their friends. So there is more life to that form, I think, than people realize.
Well, and think about the difference between radio or television and a flat screen that you're looking at. Even though there could be video on a flat screen, there's sort of a more immediacy to radio. If all of the internet goes down and the radio towers are still standing, say in an earthquake or tsunami,
right.
That's what people turn to, those stations of record that have emergency generators. There was a station, the famous story in Minot, South Dakota, when there was a chemical spill. No one was home at those stations, and it provoked a big debate in this country, which is still not over, about corporate control of media, and there's no one home at some of these stations.
And that's getting worse. That's Clear Channel, and they've even done more of that now. They've gotten rid of more local things, and they're doing even more regional and statewide things, so there is no more local. My image of the tsunami, I'll never forget. I was on the cliffs at Seacliff Beach, cars lined up, people lined up, and every one of them had a local radio station on listening, to see what was happening.
We just have about 30 seconds left, so it goes really fast. That's television for you. But just to wrap it up on a positive note, if people have story tips for you, how do they get in touch with Patch, and how do they get in touch with you? Because I know you're always looking for ideas.
Right, santacruz.patch.com. Not only do they have to can they give us a tip, they can post online themselves. They can put video, pictures up. It's an interactive site, so in a way we're also like Facebook in that they can put their own news up there.
Nice. There'll be a photo of the week, maybe, or something like that.
Photo of the day, if we can. Whatever they want. If they're there on the scene, we will put it up.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time today. I look forward to continuing to read patch.com and seeing where you end up.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. And now, Jessica Vo has your video community calendar.
Hi, I'm Jessica Vo, and I'm here at the beautiful wharf in Santa Cruz, and you're watching this month's video community calendar. We are heading into one of my favorite parts of the year, the holiday season. And to kick off the first one, it's going to be right here at the boardwalk. It's the Santa Cruz Holiday Lights Train Ride. Take a ride through the Victorian Santa Cruz as you sip hot apple cider, and you get the chance to meet Mr. and Mrs. Claus. Train rides start November 26th through December 22nd. Visit roaringcamp.com for details. And if you don't want to ride the train, you can always take a ride on the horse carriage, which is back for the holiday season. Check out Santa Cruz the old-fashioned way. They'll run from November 26th through December 23rd from 4 to 7 p.m. Just go to downtownsantacruz.com for prices. And in Felton, take a festive holiday walk through the Bear Mountains. Just check out some decorated Christmas trees by local organizations. That's from November 25th through December 18th. Call 335-4484 for more information. And lastly, here's your chance to play in some snow. On December 2nd, it's Watsonville Snow Day. Check out a mini winter wonderland on the corner of Peck and Union Street. Just go to ci.watsonville.ca.us for details. And that's just a preview of some of the upcoming events. To learn more information about other ways you can support your community, just check out our website, communitytv.org, and click on the community calendar link. You can also be our friend on Facebook, facebook.com/CTV Santa Cruz, and make sure you follow us on Twitter, twitter.com/CTV Santa Cruz County. I'm Jessica Vo. Thank you for watching CTV's video community calendar.
Thanks to Jessica Vo, and thanks to all the staff and volunteers here at Community Television. For Community Express, I'm Rachel Ann Goodman. Thanks for watching.